Morning. So, execution at the speed of thought. I think this phrase has never been more relevant than in this digital age. It's not only about that concept and that thought, that killer idea that you have, but it's also how well it's executed and the speed with which you get it out there. In this era of digitization, the world around us is changing at such a rapid speed that the need for that speed and agility, even in large industry providers and operators and telecom operators like us, that essentially becomes your make or break. We're actually living in a digital age where owning assets is not as important. The world's largest taxi company, Uber, owns no cars. The most popular media owner, which is Facebook, actually does not create any content of its own. The world's most popular retailer, Alibaba, has no inventory. And of course, the largest accommodation provider, Airbnb, does not own any real estate. So the largest communication provider today is a telco. But if you don't need to own all the assets in order to be an information provider or to be the largest taxi company or accommodation provider, you actually don't need to own the network and own your assets to be the largest communication provider. So in the future, will the largest communication provider be a telco? The disruptions are all around us, and I think as we go into this digital era, you're going to see more and more of these. They're erupting absolutely everywhere. Whether it's Pinterest or YouTube or LinkedIn or WordPress, Facebook, Twitter, you name it, any of these innovations and the entire OTT play, it is absolutely powered by the backbone provided by telecommunications. Absolutely. That is the fundamental basis on which they exist and flourish and grow. But at the same point, it's the telecoms who've actually had the entire connection with the consumers and the entire power and actually all the intelligence and the data to come up with any of these concepts. But we haven't been able to come up with a single one. So this is an interesting play in the ecosystem because all these OTT players, they need the backbone of the telcos to actually flourish and grow. But it's the telcos also that need this innovation on the fringes because otherwise the data boom that is actually paying all our salaries would not be happening. But the equally interesting thing is that we have not been able to find out ways of inventing anything based on the assets that we actually own. It took a Google to actually come up with Android, which created a revolution in the market. How many of you use Android phones here in the room? Welcome to Apple. But it actually, it's true. So the telecom industry with Nokia, with Symbian had been struggling for so many years, but not one telco provider could actually come up with an equivalent of an Android, and it took a Google to actually come up with that and revolutionize our industry. So while we're very, very grateful for that, I think this is also an opportunity for us to really take a small step back and reflect that while all this disruption is erupting around us, that we don't just stand on the fringes and watch. But it is a world, digitization is an era of collaboration as well, of coming together of people from different industries and actually using our connection to that consumer and bring the whole world and sum it in the palm of the hand. I like to believe we are in the business of telecommunications, but more importantly, we are in the business of enriching lives. And if we look at the world from that lens and keep the customer to be the center of our world, the world will look very different. I'd actually, before I carry on, I'd like to share a small video with you and some of the data of how we are actually using the communications industry, how it's propping up the world, and how our lives, your and my lives, everyday lives, are changing as well. So I'm an engineer, so I look at the world in numbers, and that is truly the world in numbers. But I come from the developing world, from India, from Africa, from South Asia. So let me show you some numbers to show you how these parts of the world are evolving as compared to the developed world and the Europe and the US. So if you look at the population of the world, 7.2 billion people, 1.2 billion of them live in my country. Another 180 million in Nigeria. Mobile subscribers, 6.7 billion in the world, almost a billion of them in India, and 140 million in Nigeria. I'll share another fact with you. 49% of Nigeria is under 14 years of age. 49%. Here's a bigger fact. 65% of Nigeria is actually under 24. That is more than half of that country is under 24. So the way that country is going to evolve and grow, and the way India is going to evolve and grow, where 50% of the population is under 35, is going to be very different from a Japan, for example, or from a China, or from a US or a UK. Smartphone growth, the entire Western world, be it the UK, the US, Europe, Japan, it's single-digit growth. And India, absolute whopping 55% in a year. Nigeria, 58%. So what about the usage of the internet? Internet user growth. Again, China, US, UK, Europe, all in single digits. Japan is in fact flat. India, on the other hand, 33% growth. Nigeria, 18%. Now let's combine all these three stats. The population using the internet on the mobile phone. USA and UK, 22-23%. India, 65%. Nigeria, 76% of the entire internet usage actually happens from the device that's in the palm of your hands. You know, when we're looking at those global numbers, 250 billion emails a day we send. I'm sure many of them are being sent right now in this room. And then you look at these numbers with these countries. These are not mobile-first economies like the US and the UK and Europe, which are mobile-first economies. These are mobile-only economies. India actually, I showed you earlier, almost 1 billion mobile subscribers, actually has only 27 million landlines. 900 million mobile phones, 27 million landlines. Nigeria, 140 million phones, mobile phones, 2 million landlines. So the economies, the form of communication is actually the mobile. And this is what brings out a very different opportunity for the telco and the entire ecosystem connected with telecommunications. We can actually go and disrupt a lot of things in this world if we just put our mind to it. I'm going to share a few of those ideas with you. We can disrupt the entire payments industry. So in India, we have 3 times as many mobile phones as bank accounts. We have 6 times the distribution network than all the bank branches and ATMs all put together. Bharti Airtel alone has 1.5 million retail outlets in the country. 1.5 million. That's more than the bank branches and the ATMs put together 5 times. If we look at, so these are mainly prepaid markets. Bharti Airtel has 230 million prepaid subscribers, 230 million. So that makes us actually the largest single wallet in the world, our prepaid. If I can connect my largest single wallet in the world to the e-commerce sites, it's not just, I'm not in the business of telecommunications. Now I'm truly in the business of enriching lives. Because whether it's shopping on the internet or buying your medicine or buying your electronics, you can leverage the wallet. Looking at Africa, 1 billion transactional value is processed through Airtel Money in Africa. In Kenya alone, 31% of Kenya's GDP is spent on mobile payments. In fact, I was being told that the government normally reports this number to be in its 40s. It just depends on how you account it. But you're still talking between, you know, more than 1/3 of the economy is actually through payments on the mobile phone. We can also disrupt the entire, revolutionize the entire entertainment industry. So again, coming from these developing countries, the users, more than 50% of our user base actually lives in rural parts of the country. So they don't recognize MBs and GBs, and when we talk about bytes and kilobytes and megabytes and gigabytes, that doesn't mean much to them. But they can relate to a song, a movie, a video clip, a news clip. That they can relate to. So last year, we actually launched, Airtel launched the Rupee One store, and it created a revolution in the market. So for those of you who are not familiar with the currency, it takes 70 of Indian rupees to make €1. So we're talking downloading a song or a video clip for 1.2 cents, basically. 1/4 of our users were first-time data users. 40% of them were actually on feature phones. Half of them came from the rural part of the country. Then we came up with a new concept of one-touch internet earlier this year. And this was all about those people who migrated from the feature phone to the smartphone, but still had not fully started embracing the internet. And 7 million unique subscribers is what we're going to hit this month. Or sorry, what we hit in May. While we're coming up with a lot of this innovation, it is very important that we actually take the view of simplifying the lives of our consumers as well. We came up with the concept of My Plan. We used to have 65,000 plans. We didn't even know which subscribers were on which plans. and it's a nuisance to maintain, but it's more difficult. You confuse the consumer more than you help them. And we came up with a concept saying one plan, and you customize it. You tell me exactly what you want. Difficult for us to execute, but really simple for the consumer. And this caused a real step change from our postpaid, which was growing at about 6 to 7% per year. Now we're growing at 20 to 25% year on year. 500,000 gross adds in a month. And almost all retail acquisitions, they're actually coming on this single plan. The telecom APIs, as we open them up to the world, that is how we are actually going to embrace all different industries and really embrace digitization. But what this requires is for us to change our own mindset and our culture. What differentiates a startup from a large telecom operator is actually that they have no fear of failure. They're just out there with a great idea and just want to go and make it big. And if they fail, they'll come up with the next big idea and go and make that big. But the larger and the bigger you get, the more this inherent fear of failure just encompasses you. And that's what actually stops a lot of the innovation. So we've got to shed that. And more importantly, and equally, it's the speed and agility with which you get the idea out there. Because time and tide wait for none. And especially in the digital age, the pace at which we are moving, the world is changing very, very fast. And you've got to keep up. So these are just some thoughts I wanted to leave all of you with. We're actually living in a world of endless possibilities. We've just got to keep an open mind. That's it. Thank you very much.